footprints.
That's why I wouldn't let anyone go near until you'd seen her. I thought you would know what to do.
All the same, first we must see if she is still alive. Now stay here. I will approach from the other side so as not to disturb the footprints. They are very clear. The footprints of Bridget and a man going out together to the place where she lies, and then the man's footprints come back, but the girls do not.
They must be the footprints of the murderer.
Exactly. A long, narrow foot with a rather peculiar type of shoe. Now, who have I seen wearing shoes that would make that kind of print?
What on earth's going on?
What's happened to Bridget?
It looks as if she's been...
Yes. It looks like murder, does it not?
But who on earth would want to kill her? It's unbelievable.
There are many things that are unbelievable. Now, let me see.
Is this another of your silly stunts?
We were just having a bit of a rag,
Oh,
but...
mon Dieu. But it is true.
What do you mean?
We must send for the police at once. One of you must telephone them immediately.
I think it's time to come clean, Monsieur Poirot. We thought we'd lay on a Christmas murder for you, just to make you feel at home. I hope you're not angry, sir. Come on, Bridget. The game's up. You must be half frozen to death already.
She does not seem to hear you. You are certain this is a joke?
Yes, of course it's a joke.
Oh, come on, Bridget. Stop playing the fool.
What's the matter with her?
Mr. Lee Wortley, will you please feel her pulse?
All right, if you really want me to. I can't feel anything at all. My God, she really is dead.
Yes. Someone has turned the comedy into a tragedy.
What do you mean?
You see the footprints? The set that go and return bear a strong resemblance to the prints you made coming here, Mr. Lee Wortley.
But why the devil should I want to kill Bridget?
I wonder. She's clutching something in her hand. What is it?
It's that damn thing out of the Christmas pudding.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure. See?
You should not have picked it up. Nothing should have been disturbed.
But I haven't moved the body, and this thing is evidence. It ought to be taken to the police. I'll go and ring them now.
I don't understand any of this. What's it got to do with Desmond? And where does that thing in the Christmas pudding come into it?
You do not know, mademoiselle?
Of course I don't know.
Let us go back into the house. Come, Michael.
But poor Bridget...
She must remain there until the police arrive. We can do no good by staying out here.
That's Desmond's car. Where is he going?
To the police station, I suppose.
But I thought he was going to telephone. Why did he take the car?
He just came rushing into the house. He said something about Miss Bridget being killed, and he had to ring police. He tried phone, but he said the wires must have been cut, and he'd have to drive over there.
Give me the telephone, if you please, Mrs. Ross.
Here you are, sir.
There is nothing at all wrong with the phone.
But what are you going to do about poor Miss Bridget? You can't just leave her out in snow.
Come to the window, all of you, and look out into the garden. What do you see?
There's nothing there. Has somebody taken her away?
You wanted to stage a little mystery, and there you have it. The case of the disappearing body.
Do you mean to say you've been having me on all this time?
Mrs. Ross, will you be so kind as to take a tisane up to Miss Bridget's room and to assist her to remove the tourniquet on her arm? It must be rather painful by now.
Oh, of course, Mr. Parrow. Nice cup of tea.
So you knew all along?
I heard you planning your little divertissement on Christmas Eve. Last night I went to Mademoiselle Bridget and told her I knew all about it. I asked her if she would play a part for me. She did it very cleverly. She even made the footprints with a pair of Mr. Lee Wortley's shoes.
But what's the point of it all? And what's any of it got to do with Desmond?
Michael, I think it is time you went to Mademoiselle Bridget to see if she has recovered. I would never forgive myself if she had caught a fluxion de poitrine.
Yes, but aren't you going to tell us what all this is about?
All in good time. But first I want a word in private with Mademoiselle Sarah.
Of course, Monsieur Poirot.
Will you please tell me what this is all about? Why did Desmond go rushing off like that?
You mean that you really do not know of the theft of a priceless ruby from a young prince by a charming young lady?
I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about. Is this a fairy tale?
This pretty young lady has a friend who has carried out several very questionable transactions concerned with the sale of stolen jewellery abroad. He persuades her to steal the ruby from the young prince and then to disappear from circulation by spending Christmas here in this house. He will contrive to get himself invited to King's Lacy, and the young lady will hand over to him the ruby. And he has an easy way of getting this priceless jewel out of England. There is an airfield only a few miles from the house, and he has his own plane waiting there. Is that not so, mademoiselle?
Yes. We were planning to elope.
It is a very good way of smuggling a jewel out of the country.
Are you trying to tell me that Desmond was just using me?
Did he persuade you to steal the ruby for him?
No, of course he didn't. I never saw the thing until it turned up in the Christmas pudding.
You did not come into my room that night to search for the ruby?
Where's Desmond? His car's gone.
Oh, Rebecca, what on earth have you done to your hair?
Who is this lady?
This is Rebecca, Desmond's sister.
Has Desmond done a bunk?
He has left you, as I believe the phrase is, to carry the can.
So, you are the great Hercule Poirot.
And you are the beautiful blonde girl who stole the prince's ruby, the heart of fire.
And what if I am? If you're planning to run me in, I'll swear that he gave it to me. And that would create a lovely little scandal, wouldn't it, a few weeks before his wedding day? But where's Desmond?
By now he will be sitting in his aeroplane waiting to take off.
And he's got the ruby with him. The whole deal was that we were to fly to Paris and share the loot between us. He's fooled me, as no doubt he's fooled you too, Sarah.
You mean you're not his sister?
Sister be damned. Desmond told me to come down to King's Lacy. He said he'd spun everyone the tale of my having to recover from a serious operation. And because I thought the police might be on the lookout for a dizzy blonde, I put on that ghastly black wig. But when Desmond arrived and told me you would be staying here, Monsieur Poirot, I thought I'd better hide myself away and get rid of the ruby.
And so you put it in the pudding that was to be served up on New Year's Day. But then, unknown to you both, there was an accident, and the pudding was dropped on the floor, and so it was the New Year pudding, with the ruby inside it, that was served at Christmas dinner.
I wish I could have seen Desmond's face when the ruby turned up on the Colonel's plate. But now the bastard's run out on me, just as he's run out on you, Sarah. I don't imagine you're thinking of turning me in, Monsieur Poirot, so I'd like to get out of this dreary old place as soon as I can. Perhaps you can arrange for a taxi to take me to the nearest mainline station.
To think that I actually felt sorry for her, and Desmond was just smuggling his mistress into the house under my nose. What made you so certain I came into your room after the ruby?
She was wearing your perfume, mademoiselle.
She asked if she could borrow it. She said she'd left everything in London. But who on earth is this?
A stately-looking Daimler was coming up the drive. It contained a very flustered-looking Mr. Jesmond.
Oh, the devil's got clean away, I'm afraid. No one bothered to pay much attention to my instructions at the airfield. They were still sleeping off the effects of Christmas night. Lee Wortley must have kept the plane fueled and ready to go at a moment's notice. Oh, damn.
He looked so crumpled and woebegone that I took him and led him into the house to meet the Lacys.
So the prince has lost his precious ruby forever.
'Tis a great pity, but there is no point in shedding tears over the spilled milk, as your poet says. And now, if the Lacy family will permit, I would like to give Mr. Jesmond a little present from the Christmas tree.
Of course, Monsieur Poirot.
Oh, go ahead, dear fellow.
Here, Mr. Jesmond. And a very happy Christmas.
But this is
It glitters prettily in the light, does it not?
the Princess Ruby, the heart of fire.
You mean to say it's been hanging there on the Christmas tree all along?
Where better to hide it than among all the glass decorations? I knew that Mr. Lee Wortley would never dream of looking there.
But what about the one he grabbed out of my hand when I was lying there in the snow?
It was a paste replica, mademoiselle. I fancy Mr. Lee Wortley will have quite an unpleasant surprise when he tries to sell it in Paris.
I bet he will.
And so, the prince can return home with the ruby without fear of scandal.
We are all greatly in your debt, Monsieur Poirot. A major scandal has been averted.
So all ends well.
Except for me.
Oh, no, Sarah. You should congratulate yourself on a very narrow escape.
I'm so sorry, Em. I nearly mucked up your party.
Oh, well, I'm just grateful we've seen the last of that frightful chap. I knew he was a bad egg when he started carrying on about Christmas.
But there remains one mystery to be resolved. Could you tell me which of the maids is responsible for making my bed, Mrs. Lacey?
Oh, that would be Annie Bates.
I would like to have a word with her, if you permit.
I think you'll find her in the scullery, Monsieur Poirot.
Don't eat none of the Christmas pudding. Did you write that, Annie?
I didn't mean no harm, sir. Really, I didn't.
No, of course you did not, mon enfant. But why did you write it?
Well, it were Mr. Lee Wortley and his sister. Not that she were his sister, I'm sure. I was in his bathroom, taking in new towels, and I couldn't help hearing what they were saying. This Poirot fellow is bad news, he says. We've got to do something about him. And then he says very quietly, "Where did you put it?" And she says, "In the pudding." And my heart gave such a leap I thought it would stop beating. I was sure they were going to poison you by putting something in the pudding. So I had the idea of writing a note to you and leaving it on your pillow where you'd find it when you went to bed. I hope I did the right thing, sir.
And to think I actually believed that you'd come down here to experience an old English Christmas. But I suppose a detective is never really off duty.
Alas, madame, that is unfortunately true. But my stay here has nevertheless brought about a wonderful transformation. I used to be like your Scrooge and say that Christmas was all humbug.
And now?
Now? I think I could make a habit of it.
Then you must come again next year. We can play all the old Christmas games. Hunt the Slipper, Dun Crambo, Snapdragon, and we could have recitations. And M's speciality is Christmas Day in the workhouse. I do a magnificent wreck of the Hesperus.
I shall look forward to it. But please, if you would be so kind...
What, my dear fellow?
Let Mrs. Ross do the pudding. I cannot imagine Christmas without it.
In Agatha Christie's The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding, Hercule Poirot was played by John Moffat. Colonel Lacey, Donald Sinden. Mrs. Lacey, Sian Phillips. Mr. Jesmond, Murray Melvin. Sarah Lacey, Alice Hart. Desmond Lee Wortley, Robert Portal. Bridget, Annabel Dowler. Michael, Ivan Meredith. Rebecca, Angela Sims. Mrs. Ross, Elizabeth Proud. Other parts and the singers were members of the cast. The musicians were Robin Aspland, piano. Julian Siegel, clarinet. Steve Watts, bass. The drums were played by Tom Smale, who also arranged and directed the music. The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding was dramatized for radio by Michael Bakewell and directed by Enid Williams.